Hi there. How's everybody doing today? We see we have some folks joining. I'm looking at some that are in the US, and actually, we have some folks from Europe already joining. So, welcome to everyone. My name is Jennifer Welch. I am one of the partners and founders of the CMO Syndicate. And joining me today is one of my esteemed colleagues, Sofia Ramirez. Say hello, Sofia.
Hello, Jane. Hello, everyone. Welcome.
It's great to have you all here today. We're going to try and be on time as much as possible. We know we've only got 30 minutes. We have a webinar series. If you haven't joined us before, we have a webinar series, and it's usually a couple of us from the CMO Syndicate sharing our point of view. We call the series the Accelerator point of view because we've taken some topic that we deal with on a regular basis related to brand, marketing, strategy, growth, and we've taken a deep dive on it. We've seen it. And so what we try and do is share our aha moments with you. And Sophia had taken a deep dive recently on competitive advantage and had a take on it. And so we decided we would share that with you today. So Sophia, do you want to say a few words about the topic?
Yeah, Jen, thank you. We, you and I have spent plus 20 years working with large, mid-sized startup companies, and something that we have found in common, and not only between us, but across all our CMOs at the syndicate, is that there is always a conversation about competitive advantage, around the C-suite and the boardrooms. But there is a little conversation happening about how much do we know our customers. And we have realized that this is a big, it's a big issue because a lot of companies do not truly know their customers or are not really predicting, the changes in customer behavior. So we thought it would be great if we bring this to you guys, share our insights. And it's, we talk not only from experience, but from, like Jen mentioned, we have done a lot of research, reading papers, articles, listening to podcasts to bring this curated information to you guys.
Yeah, we're going to go through about four main areas today. We're going to talk about why we think a lot of people think, especially the C-suite, think that their competitive advantage is an illusion. We also have seen what true market leaders are doing to exploit your blind spot or my blind spot or someone that's not doing the things that we think that the market leaders are doing. We're going to really talk specifically about what we see that they are doing differently. And we're going to talk a little bit about what we think could be a model for your competitive advantage. So I'm going to, Sophia come up with this topic about the big lie. And I'm going to share that lie with you. And I'm going to let Sophia talk a little bit about that. So Sophia, I'm going to share this.
Yes, and Jen, before getting into that, I think it's important that we all recognize that we are living times of economic uncertainties, and in
Mm,
consequence, actually lots of technology advancements, but in consequence, we are seeing shifts in customer behavior. And I keep thinking about this analogy, how there is science and art behind feeling and sensing those tremors. That's those subtle tremors before a big earthquake hits you, right? So that is what we are going to go through. And what we have identified is that CEOs, especially, they build this company or they represent this company and they love it. It's their babies, right? So it's very difficult to see what's wrong. Um, so we call this the lies that we tell ourselves, and they are three lies. We have identified them. The first one is this illusion that we have a competitive advantage and that we are going to keep it forever, right? That is one. And then that market leaders are not really seeing those blind spots that I'm talking about. And then, what are we going to do different about it? So the first slide that we see is the product is our differentiator. And I bet, Jen, you have heard, we have talked about it. I have heard so many times from CEOs that our product is so great that that is going to differentiate us, through time. The other lie is our customers are truly loyal to us. And in a world where things are hyper connected, it's so easy nowadays to copy and iterate other products. So we need to watch out for that blind spot. And the third one is brand loyalty. No, I'm sorry, it's we know our customers, and that for me has been the biggest gap that I have observed through time, and it's very dangerous because if you truly know your customer, wonderful. But if not, you need to question ourselves if you are only looking at historical data, if you run once in a while sporadic surveys, or if you, in a systematic way, you're looking at that data and you are also trying to predict the consumer behavior and building assumptions and react really quickly to that. And that is where we are going to double click in this conversation, Jen.
I think when Sophia and I were talking about this and talking about the research that she'd been doing, what was surprising, I guess not surprising to me, is how often we see those lies being told. And not because people are inherently trying to be deceptive. It's a lot
Yep.
of times, it's what Sophia said about the tremors before the earthquake. If you think about your personal life, sometimes, and especially I think women, we have sort of that internal tug that we don't necessarily pay attention to for
Hmm.
whatever reason. And what we see in the boardroom is we don't pay attention to those things because we are so busy in the day to day of the running that we
Exactly.
don't step back and say, was that a thing? Was that a thing? It came through my email, or I saw it on the dashboard, or somebody mentioned something, or I thought I should check something and I didn't. And so all of those lies are not a lie in the sense that in the sense that people are trying to be dishonest with themselves or with the company. It's what we see that we're doing to ourselves because we're not addressing things. We're not stepping off of the day to day. This idea where I think the third one that Sophia mentioned was we know our customers. Every single client that we work with, and we've been in this game, 30 years each, and whether it's with our previous companies and our backgrounds, it's the same with the other CMOs and the CMO Syndicate. We talk about this all the time. Everybody says they know their customer. And yet, when you really take a deep dive into it, what do you really, really, really know? Now, some and market leaders are better than others, but we also find some of the simplest things that we know innately we should be tracking, we should have data on, we don't. And I think
Yeah.
one of the things that Sophia was really taking a deep dive into is the data is there now. Like we don't really even have an excuse. It's kind of like we have the gym membership and we know what it's going to do for us and we're still not even going. So, Sophia, I'm going to let you take a little bit deeper dive past the three lies and into what you're seeing there. Let me share the screen again right quick.
Yeah. And there is this statistic I read from Gartner that says that companies that truly leverage their data, they outperform their competitors 20% in revenue and 30% in growth, which is pretty meaningful nowadays, right? And before we get into the red flags and the signals that you need to look at, like Jen mentioned, some companies, probably you are doing it already. You look at your customer data, historical one, right? It's important to realize that now with, AI especially, you can look at your customer intelligence and amplify it to truly turn your consumer insights into a pathway to know your customer future behaviors, right? That is the key, because those behaviors are changing rapidly. So it's not only about collecting the data, it's not only about trying to make sense of it. Nowadays, you need to have a systematic practice, operationalize your data consumption to build insights that can you really fast can action and set yourself for success and differentiate your product, differentiate your relationship that you have with your customers. Because
I
at the
think
end of the
that
day,
I think that's an exclamation point, Sophia. And so when we talk about the tremors from a marketing aspect, and so to the C-suite out there that's not living and
yeah,
breathing marketing every day, when we talk about the tremors, what we see as marketers is data points.
Yes,
So is it market intelligence? Is it customer intelligence? Is it competitive intelligence?
that's
So
right.
what we find are the blind spots can be resolved by actually stepping off the treadmill and looking at the data points, whether it's market, whether it's customer, whether it's competitive. And I think one of the things that Sophia thought that we could probably lend the most credibility to is what we're doing and what we're seeing as best practice related to even customer data. So if you try not to boil the ocean and you're just looking at customer data, what is available that we should be doing that we're not, that's not difficult, and intuitively and philosophically it's like, yeah, I know I should go to the gym, yeah, I know I should do this, but I'm not. But we know that the market leaders, especially with the tools related to AI that are available to us, they are doing it. And I
Yeah.
think one of the things that Sophia and I were really astounded by is the lack of urgency for companies that are not doing these things. They are still in, I think, Sophia, you had called it legacy mode, and they're still just
Mhm.
plodding along, and maybe they're tapping into the kindergarten level of ChatGPT or the OpenAI tools, but they're not focusing it systemically. And I think where Sophia made a big point with me earlier in the week, it was, individually we do things or we say things, but that's not going to cut it now. It's systemically. And
That's
so,
right.
Sophia, I don't know if you want to expand on that a little bit more.
Yeah, let's go into those signals, and then we can close with, the systemic processes that you can start building. So every company is different, industry, and you need to do your homework and identify what are those KPIs, what are those signals that will help you to understand consumer behavior changes, right? But we wanted to bring here to the conversation some of those KPIs that we believe you should start looking at. And if we start on the B2C, D2C side, to truly understand your customer, you need to understand the lifetime value of your customer, right? But what is next level is trying to predict what's going to be that lifetime value of a specific cohort. And because think about it, if you are seeing changes in that predictive lifetime value, maybe your proposition is not that relevant anymore. And I want to say this again. I have been in multiple situations, Jen, based on our conversation you have as well, where the C-suite, the CEO wants to focus on the business KPIs, right? Revenue, growth, what have you. But at the end of the day, they are the earthquake, right? You really need to look at more customer-oriented, like how is the customer feeling KPIs, so you can prevent the earthquake, right? You can do things about it. So this is this list
Let me
about.
let me underscore that because I think for the CFO, the head of HR, the head of all the other functions that are not marketing,
Yeah.
what Sophia just indicated is that you are going to be looking at your business dashboard and you probably will see the earthquake. But what you should be asking for is the data around those tremors. And these are those tremors. These are those things that are going to tell you before you get to the earthquake situation. So go ahead, Sophia.
Yes, and that doesn't mean that you don't continue looking at your business KPIs as your priority, but in a systematic way. What we are suggesting is that you start looking at these signals so you can predict what could happen to your business. So the other one is that ratio, CAC LTV, that is more common on the D2C companies. But understanding the correlation between your efforts to acquire a customer and their lifetime value can help you to predict what is the customer perception about what you're selling, right? So for me, that's a really important one. For some e-commerce companies, tracking frequency and basket size is important, and especially in an environment where customers are more price sensitive. You need to figure out if there are some shifts in there that will help you to predict your revenue, and especially on those premium products, right? Then the other one that I truly like is win back rate. It's just business as usual that sometimes you lose customers, but you need to try to regain those customers, bring them back. And if that ratio or if that indicator is not performing as it should or it has been in the past, that's another signal that probably your proposition, in contrast with the competition, is losing value. And the other one that it feels more like a marketing kind of lingo is sentiment. Tracking sentiment scores is really important, and having the technology to identify keywords in the internet when customers talk about you or refer to you as frustrating, or any negative sentiment keyword. That's a really important red flag for customer dissatisfaction and future churn. Now, Jen, if we go to the B2B signals,
Right.
and
Right.
we're going to share all of this with you guys as a downloadable document. So we don't need to go into detail, but I just want to highlight a couple of the B2B signals. The one for me that is really important is product engagement. So there are a lot of companies that B2B companies that their product is about the value that they deliver to the customer, right? So if you start seeing that the usage of that product or the interaction with that product, it starts shifting, they are not using it as much, then that's a red flag for churn. And that is almost an easy one to solve, because if you are truly tracking the interaction, you can fix it as you go, and with the objective of retaining those customers, right? Is there anything here, Jen, any of these signals that grab your attention based on your experience with your previous companies or your customers?
Well, what I really liked was the inbound signal quality because
Hmm.
what I believe is that if you are not engaging at the highest levels, you might be missing out on those signals. So when your
Yeah.
strategic buyers are not who you're speaking to and you're getting the junior folks, then
Yes.
that needs to tell you that you're not at the level that you thought you may be at. And more importantly, I think just overall on both of these sets of KPIs and signals is I like to think of it as we get so involved in our day-to-day business that we're doing the doing and marketers are doing the telling.
Yep.
Your strategic opportunity is the listening. And everything that we're talking about here, tracking is akin to listening. What is actually happening as a result of what you're doing? Marketers are excellent doers, but the really great marketers are listening and then cycling back. And I know Sophia is going to talk a little bit about the systems in a moment, but I just don't want to lose this idea of the listening as
Yep.
important as the doing and the telling, because I think every one of the C-suite teams that we work with are really great doers, and they're doing and they're implementing and they're putting things out and they're telling. But what we find is the other side of the equation is the listening so that they can recycle and do. Yeah.
Yeah. Jen, and before we get into what
Yeah.
does this mean for business? You use the word marketers a couple of times. I just want to stress knowing your customer, predicting his behavior or their behavior is not the marketing team job, it's everyone's job at a company. So we will talk about, culture in a minute, but I just want to make sure that that message, resonates
Yeah.
with with
Yeah.
the
Completely
audience.
agree. Completely agree. In fact, I've seen several diagrams that I've used over my lifetime that puts like communications at the very end, reporting down at the very end. But that's not how you build culture, and it's certainly not how you build brand. So it has to be owned by the executive team.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Jen, now if we talk about, you know, what can we do? Um, so there is no secret recipe. That's important to know. There is not silver bullet. We need to do the due diligence. But if we can think about three fundamental steps that everyone should be taking. Number one is make sure that you build um, customer behavior sensing infrastructure, you know, that you have processes in place, and that is not about sending a survey once in a while. It's like investing in listening, as you mentioned, and reading the customer's signals on a evergreen base. And it's not only about transactional data or business driven data, but the customer footprint, the customer service interaction. I always tell my teams that, when we hear negative, constructive feedback from customers in the call center, that's gold because that means an opportunity to do things better, right? So go for social listening as well and invest in that infrastructure. And if you are doing it, you are a step ahead, right? If you are not doing it, we truly encourage you and we can help you to go in that direction. But the second one, let me say this, if you're already, listening to your customer and you feel you're doing a good way, excellent, but you are almost behind. The next level is that you deploy those insights and you turn them into predictive models. So you, in this rapidly changing environment, you can predict how the customer is going to value your products, how are they going to feel about your pricing, how are they going to feel about the new products that you are launching or that you are not launching and the competition is doing there, right? What do you think about that, Jen?
So for me, I guess if you think about like the kindergartner step versus the advanced step of using some of these tools, once you start getting used to it, once you start feeding in, you should be able to look at correlation and causation, and that's
Yeah,
the predictive AI. And I'm always, we're always trying to get to correlate to causation, right? But I would take those tremors as correlation as well. And then it's up to us to understand whether that correlation matters or not. So predictive AI should be something that is systemically put into it's related to point number one. The behavior sensing infrastructure has to be there. It can't be just a guy running ChatGPT on your
yeah,
team. It
yeah,
has to be part of the infrastructure. But predictive AI is going to do some of that homework for you and ask on those prompts, or is this correlative or is this causation? And how do I know? And those things that are causation, prioritize
yeah.
those first.
And with generative AI, you can consume enormous amount of data and process it in minutes versus, probably 6 months ago. So it will just be a missing opportunity if your team is not, already exploring it. And the third piece that we're bringing to the table, and we believe it's really important, it's how you create a system, right? How do you turn this into a strategic, systematic model in your company? You can call it operationalize your processes, right? And you are looking at those business KPIs, but how you bring to that process, looking at this other customer sentiment and behavior KPIs to your everyday business. That's the key. That's really, really the key. And the next crucial part is how you react, how you make sure that your organization will listen, will see it, identify the signals, and react quickly. And I have been in more than a couple of situations where we have been as a company facing, difficult challenges. And, I have a wonderful example where we reacted really quickly and it never happened again because after reacting, we established a process moving forward. But I have been also in the situation where, it took us a while to identify those signals and then we reacted, but we forgot about it. We were like, oof, we went through it. Let's just hope for the best the next time, right?
But
So
I think
being
that
agile
happens
is
more
key.
often than,
Yeah,
especially now. So what corporations and companies really want is stability.
yeah,
They don't really care whether it's left, right, center. It's about stability. And right now, the markets have been this year have been more challenging. We saw this in 2020 and 2021. So the new normal is instability, unfortunately, right? So, and when that happens, we get out of our habits. We don't go to the gym. We don't do things systemically. We don't put processes in place. We don't do scenario planning, et cetera. And what we're suggesting here is the tools are there. Philosophically, we know what to do. But
Hmm.
if we're not doing it, we are going to be so much further behind than our competitors. And that's, I think, what Sophia and I were really been talking about the last few weeks with some of the other CMOs is the sense of urgency to
The sense of urgency.
actually get this in place doesn't seem to be there in some companies. And what we're seeing is they're losing share, they're losing competitive advantage, and they don't know it. And they don't know it. It's not complacency or any of that, but they just don't feel that sense of urgency, and they're gonna have the earthquake when they could have been following the tremors. Yeah.
Yeah. And if we want people to leave this, this session, that is our point of view, again, very well informed, is one thing. It's not about uh, only building new processes. It's not only about bringing new technology or a couple of new resources. This fast changing environment where, with economic uncertainty that we envision is just going to carry on, it's really important to champion a culture of consumer obsessed understanding, right? And that's the key. Like if everyone is marching in the same direction and it's aligned in terms of how to use the data and what for, that is where we see leaders, and you have all of us have in mind those leaders that truly use data really well, high personalized, your experience, and have you there. And it's difficult to leave because you are seeing value, right? That is the key. It's truly, a transformative culture inside the company. That is where I will live in.
Thanks. We had one question that's already come up that I wanted to just notice, and also just to for everyone that's joined the webinar today, we do have the downloadable with the dashboards. We'll send that out to everybody within 24 hours. We want you to know you're not in this alone, and so we see this every single day, and we deal with it. Everyone in the CMO syndicate has got their different area of expertise, but these are all very common threads that we're seeing with companies of all sizes, all industries, and certainly in all geographies. So this is not a U.S. thing. Sophia is actually based in Austin. I'm based in Houston. It's not a Texas thing. This is it's not necessarily just a company size thing. We're seeing this a lot, which is why we thought it would be a great point of view. One of the questions that we had was from a D2C company, and they specifically wanted to talk about blind spots for subscription services. And I think if we were to look back at the dashboard, Sophia, that you had from a subscription service, what would you say the biggest blind spot is where we're seeing some of these tremors?
Um, I mean, cost of the ratio CAC LTV, I think will be really important. It will tell if our subscription is truly putting a differentiator value out there. I will say that, and then our ability to win back customers when they leave, because it's true. Like when the year starts, when budgets get complicated, the first thing that you want to cancel is that subscription, right? So how you
That's
can
right.
bring them back, I will say it's really important.
That's
Um,
right. And
and,
I think the
and
brand loyalty piece plays as well. I think
yeah,
I'm always talking about brands, and I always think brand loyalty will carry you through in tough times. But what we've seen is when you're faced with supply chain issues, et
yeah.
cetera, you don't have a choice, and you may switch. So that win back is really important. How do we get those folks back? Yeah.
Exactly, exactly. And we saw those, changes happening starting with the pandemic that, we used to be animals of loyalty. We were loyal to our brands, but, in the pandemic, we learned that it's not that difficult to switch to, a cheaper or better or available alternative nowadays.
Available has a lot to do with it too. So that's going to conclude our point of view session, accelerator point of view session today. We do these pretty often. If you found value in this, reach out, let us know. If you're struggling, if you have questions, reach out to any of us in the CMO Syndicate. Be happy to jump on a call with you. We enjoy the diversity of views and the diversity of thought. We learn from everyone. Our network is pretty broad. We'd love for you to be in our network as well. We wholeheartedly believe in the wisdom of crowds. And so sometimes We believe that the brain trust, two minds are better on this than one. So we'd be happy to talk to you at any point in time.
Thank you, Jen. Thank you for the
Thanks,
conversation.
Sophia. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
Bye bye.